Got McMullen and McDonald here with you on Birds 365. Time to return to our guests. Looking forward to filling up the slate with all good insiders and insights today. We get that right out of the bat from a guy who played in the league, knows it well, former Owl and Panther Giant. Hey, we can run to all the teams that he's played for. Still waiting for him to get that Eagles nod. Colin Thompson joins us here on Birds 365. Been a minute, Colin. How you been?
Mac and Mac, two of my favorites. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Good to see you, Colin.
You too, buddy.
Yeah, you probably saw in the green room. We're talking about aggression. We're talking about blitzing. You're a tight end. All these.
We just put the rest like.
Oh my God! That please.
Everybody asked me. Oh, you know Sean Desai. He went to Temple. Is he going to bring pressure? Well, like what? First off, if you know the Eagles and you're an intelligent fan, they don't need to bring pressure when you pay that much money in your front four, front five. So to answer your question, is Sean Desai going to bring pressure? I have no idea, but I know this. He's going to run a 5 down front. Hassan's going to be standing up. They're going to have probably a freak on the backside too if they don't have one already, and they're going to be stout in the middle. So it's going to be a 5 down look. It's going to be all the stuff that Vic Fangio did, I'm assuming, with like they did with Khalil Mack. It's going to be a lot of fun. But the pressure, the 4-3, like even B-Doc, who I have a ton of respect for, met at the Maxwell Awards, like absolutely freaking love this guy. Like literally changed my life via a conversation. Like we talk about someone who gives you the time of day. It doesn't have to. Gave me like 30 minutes just talking about lifting in season, and him and I are going back and forth. And he's like, they need to blitz the safeties. And I'm like, I want to be like, hey, Brian, are you walking around the building down there? Do they have anybody like you or John Lynch or like these and they have great defensive backs. Eagles have a fantastic defense. It's an uproar.
It's a different game. Yeah, it's a different game. How many times, Colin, do you see a 4-3? You don't see 3 linebackers on the field.
You can't.
The whole 4-3 versus 3-4 trope, it drives me insane.
Pressure because we got Jim Johnson. You have no crap. They had literally their whole defense. Like everybody in Philly wants everyone to go cover 0, blitz the house, and go man-to-man coverage, and then complain about the DBs getting beat over the top. It's like, come on, guys. It's why you pay Hassan Reddick a ton of money. That's why you bring in Sue and Joseph and like. That's what their job is. So I digress.
All right. And thank you for digressing. It was interesting. B-Doc and other former Eagles who have opinions on how the defense should be played today, aside, coaching in the NFL 2023, upcoming season, last season, the season before, Eagles have made some significant changes to their coaching staff out of necessity because guys got opportunity to be head coaches elsewhere. The relationship with the coaches and the players. How long does that take to develop? Is this something Eagle fans should be worried about? Because it does take time, and they had the great continuity last year with no changes to the staff. How big a hurdle is this for the Eagles when they open up camp this year?
I think it depends on who your head coach is. And obviously in the Eagles position, they have one of the premier relationship building head coaches in the NFL, you'd assume, right? Because, and I don't know him, I don't know the organization, but just from the outside perspective, he's not calling plays. And he's got great relationships with players, creates tons of energy. And I think, too, it also matters like who your veterans are, who your quarterback is, and then organizationally, like who's your GM, who's your owner. So there's a lot of really good boxes checked there for the Philadelphia Eagles. And that's just fact. So if you're going to be a really good team, and the Eagles plan to be for the next decade, like they have been the decade before, the teams are going to come, pluck their coordinators. And you have to be able to hire really good ones behind it. And I think they really hired a good one in Sean Desai. So relationship-wise, when it comes to Sean Desai, you're getting no better of a man, no better of a father, no better of a connector than Sean. I met Sean when I was with the Chicago Bears in 2017. John Fox got fired. Sean was retained in Chicago. Vic Fangio was retained in Chicago when Matt Nagy came in. Sean and I connected because just like anything as a player, you're trying to connect with a coach and get kind of caught on to guys. And Sean was running the scout team offense as a defensive analyst. And he's a Temple grad. He's like got 40 degrees. The guy is brainiac, right? There's a few guys in coaching, right? Like I played with Mark Trestman. He was like a lawyer, right? They're like different professions they could be elite at, but they decide to herd cats and coach football and have no life other than football. So Sean is an amazing person. Like literally, I spent time with him before our game in Seattle this year and we talked for probably 30. I wasn't playing. I was in the practice squad. So I walked out and I always, walk around and see the guys I know and on the other team, the staff, the players. We talked for, I don't know, 20, 25 minutes about Pete Carroll, about the Seattle organization, what they do well. How are you doing? What's your plan? He's hiding, of course, close to his vets, what he wants to do. But I know he wanted to be a coordinator again. And then to get back in Philly, a place he knows really well, he's going to embrace it. And I think he's going to put players in the best situation to have success, just like any coordinator tries to do. So, yeah, relationship-wise, if you're referring to Sean, it's going to be fantastic because everybody loves Sean, coaches and players included.
From a player's perspective, Colin, what do you look for in a coach? And a position coach first and then a coordinator, because the Eagles, we know the season, we know where they went. They're in the Super Bowl. They collapsed defensively in the final 30 minutes. Jonathan Gannon gets the head coaching job in Arizona, and all of a sudden CJ Gardner-Johnson saying, you got to put us in better positions to succeed. Now, from the outside looking in, Colin, I'm saying, you were in the Super Bowl, right? You had a career year. Somebody did something. I mean, maybe CJ did it all himself, but as a player, do you think that's just frustration? What are you guys looking for from the coaching staff?
I can't really I don't know what's going on with that. I mean, I see it, the tweet, it's emotional. I don't know even know how to unbox that, honestly, just being factual. I don't think anybody really does. I think from the outside in, you think it's emotion or it's upset or whatever. He had a career year, right? I keep seeing on the ticker on NFL Network, he's one of the top, 15 free agents. Yeah. So he's doing something and he's a good player. I know him from Florida. So, when you're looking for like that kind of continuity between a coach, a coordinator, a position coach, really for me on a personal level, a social level, they know a ton of football. They know a bunch of scheme. They know of you as a player previous. So Sean's going to come in and say, I really like what you did last year. Hassan, I really like this system. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? I think you can be a coordinator and come down to a player's level and have that personal conversation about life. Sure. But then about football, and then how as a player, you're going to make me better. And then how as a coach, I'm going to make you better. And I think when you have that symmetry, and again, it starts back to our previous conversation of who's your head coach. Does your head coach empower coordinators? Does your head coach empower position groups? Because some places, hey, listen, the head coach may run the whole show. The head coach may call the offense. The head coach may leave your position coach 15 to 20 minutes of individual meetings. And then some coaches may have 20 minutes or 2 hours of individual meetings where we're meeting with a tight end coach for 2 hours. We build this unbelievable rapport, tight-knit room. So it's like the balance inside the room that a lot of people don't talk about too, in the building of where's the allotment of meeting time to build those relationships. And I don't know those questions. It's probably a great question for media to ask Coach Sirianni, because it's like, what's your philosophy on longer individual meetings? Because to me as a player, I really enjoy them because you really get to learn a lot. Go ahead, Jody.
One thing that I think you got to give Sirianni credit for is he empowers his coordinators. There's no question about that. Within 5 games, he turned over the play calling to Shane Steichen, and everyone knew from day one that it was going to be Gannon's defense, and Sirianni wasn't going to be overruling what he wanted to do. So that's a major strength for the Eagles. They've got the right guy in place to do that. So let me go there with their new offense coordinator, Brian Johnson. And Nick did a very good sales job when he talked about him, made the official announcement out in Indianapolis that he was a major contributor to all the coaching meetings when they were putting their weekly game plan together, that he was on the headsets on Sunday and was a contributor there as well. But he's never called the plays. And just my opinion, and I know John and I share this one, Shane Steichen's a damn good play caller. Man, he really blossomed in his year and change calling plays for the Philadelphia Eagles. Other than Nick say-so, Why do we think Brian Johnson's going to be a good play caller for the Eagles? We know he's going to have a great relationship with the quarterback, which is important because it's been in place for 20 years, but he's going to actually have to call the plays on Sunday. Why should Eagle fans believe the Eagles are going to be able to go on and without skipping a beat, be the same offensive play calling team they were this past year?
Who's your offensive line? Who's your quarterback? Who are your gadgets?
It's all about the players, huh? You got the right horses in front of you.
I know.
Is that what you're telling me, Colin?
Who's the
Jimmy's
gadgets?
and Joe's, baby.
It's not X's and O's. It's Jimmy's and Joe's, man. And listen, it pays. I'm not taking anything away from a signal caller. Every signal caller would say the same thing. It's real easy to call plays when you're running an RPO and the offensive linemen are double teaming the 3-tech up into a linebacker's lap, and the quarterback's like, should I pull it? Should I hand it? Let me just hand it here and let's get 12 yards. So I think the Eagles have really built personnel-wise, no shocker, top 4, top 5 roster in the NFL. You can argue maybe 1. So on the coordinator side, I don't think people understand, and you guys do, but assistant coaches are heavily involved in game planning. I mean, they come up and do a whole presentation. This is what our third downs, a quarterback coach doesn't even call plays. This is what our third down is going to be. Tight end coach goes up. Guys, this is what our red zone is going to look like. Here's our top 5 calls in the red zone. Running back coach comes up. He's talking about protections and what checks we can get out of it. So they're all kind of sharpening their sword in a way all season long on different phases, different things, different protection, different blitzes. Here, we saw this. We played Atlanta week 1. We're playing Atlanta week 8 too because they're in division for the Eagles. Dallas did this week 1. We're going to save this for week 10. So there's this constant, they're always getting that repetition. They're always getting that repetition. So again, I get it. He didn't call plays. I'm sure the preseason, they're going to be putting them in spots to call plays during practice. They're going to be putting them in spots to call plays in the preseason games, challenging stuff. So I think he'll be fine. He's going to put the work in, I'm sure. And the staff's great. And the staff that comes in underneath him, now that he's promoted, is going to prop him up and help him out too. So it's a joint effort. It's not easy calling plays, and the guys that can do it are really good. And I truly think it's Jimmy's and Joe's, not X's and O's.
Yeah, it is. You and I agree on that, Colin. It's a personnel-driven sport. And I think, football more than other sports, coaching matters. But, I mean, Andy Reid's one of the best coaches of all time, and I've seen him have bad seasons. It's not like he turned into a bad coach that season. If you don't have the talent, it's really difficult. We see it with Bill Belichick now. Yeah, it's easier with Tom Brady than Mac Jones and everybody else. Mm-hmm. So I agree with you with personnel, but then it comes down to when you get in big spots, and we go back to Super Bowl 57 here in Philadelphia, and we say, hey, I look at the raw numbers and I say, they gave up Patrick Mahomes 182 passing yards to the best quarterback in the world. Now, if I told you that before the game, you'd probably go, well, the Eagles are probably going to win that game. Turnovers. They didn't win that game because a player, and I know I'm putting you in a bad spot, but if you go back to Super Bowl 52, where the Eagles won, Brandon Graham makes the strip sack late. Player made a play. They still gave up 505 passing yards to Tom Brady, but a player made a play in a big spot. I love Jim Schwartz. I think Jody knows. I think Jim is great, but that's Brandon Graham. Go get the quarterback on the pass rush, make a play. He did it. They didn't do it this time around. To me, it's as simple as that. Do you look at it different as a player?
Well, there's a couple things to unpack there. One, the play was made, but it wasn't made by the Eagles. It was, and you could say maybe it wasn't made by the Eagles, or it was because, and Jalen will tell you, when Jalen's scrambling on the RPO and pulls it, he's got to have 2 hands on the football, or he's got to tuck it, right? And that ball popped out on him. It didn't just pop out of his hands. They made the play to force that out. All season long, he's been pulling it probably and running with it, and, nobody was home. Well, the Super Bowl, everybody's got that stuff. Boom, they popped the ball out, they scooped and scored, and they made that play. That changed the game. Eagles, in my opinion, looking at things, how they train, it should have continued to be maybe a 2-score game. Maybe they come back because Mahomes can throw and they can navigate offensively like no one can moving the football down the field. But like you said, John, I mean, how many passing yards did they lay it up against the best passing offense in the NFL? Maybe not on paper, but I don't know, everyone's pretty scared of it. So, no, I think it's a great point. I think it's overreactionary. Let's make Eagles fans awesome. I think it's, but at the end of the day, guys, it's like, man, that was a great Super Bowl. They lost by 3. And I think it's the beginning of something special in Philadelphia. I do. I don't think it's any secret around the league, the way they're built, the draft capital, the players. It's going to be interesting how they handle the quarterback situation moving forward, though, financially. Really, I mean, no matter who Jalen is, whatever, there's just quarterback X now. Do you max a guy out?
Yeah.
Right? Do you franchise tag him? Do you, God forbid, trade him? Right? Like, what now? It's a serious.
Oh, don't say that. Don't
no,
say
but
that.
I mean, the point is, like, right? You see it all over the league now. What are you
no,
gonna
you do. You know, we're going to see quarterback movement. But the Eagles, one thing Howie Roseman said in Indianapolis, Colin, and I thought it was interesting because we always talk about you have these windows, and the Eagles had this window to build this great roster because they didn't have to pay the quarterback. Now they have to pay the quarterback. But Howie said something interesting. You know, the only thing better than not having to pay the quarterback is essentially wanting to pay the quarterback. And they now believe they have a superstar and they have no problem paying the quarterback. And they're going to give him $48 to $52 million a year, average annual value. But you know what? 3 years from now, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, everybody keeps coming down the pike. That deal's going to look like, you know what? You never say, it's hard to say to people, $48 million isn't that much, but
yeah, but you got to
4
look at it in
years from
perspective.
now.
Yeah.
4 years.
No, it's interesting. Like it's a great point. Like we want to pay that guy. Of course, when he's your guy, you pull the trigger. And I'm not saying he wasn't the guy. It's just the entity of the quarterback position in the NFL today. Even if you are a star, i.e. Lamar Jackson, there's a lot of conversation about it. So no, it should be interesting to see. I think when the Eagles draft so well, especially what they do on the front, really front 4 of the defense, and the front
line.
and the front 5 of the offensive line and what they've done there and the big trades they're able to make too to fill up gaps where things maybe not have worked too, like a Brown at receiver. So it should be, I think, I mean, again, Cowherd, everybody gives him kind of crap for it, but it's like, who's your owner? Who's your GM? Who's your head coach? Who's your starting quarterback? I think you can argue the Eagles are in the top 3 in that category.
Yeah,
So
it is very important to having a winning organization. All right, Colin, this has been a story, a narrative, call it what you want. And you kind of touched on it, but I want to hold you down even more so. The quarterback and his new contract. Should the Eagles expect a discount, a bargain, slightly less for the good of the team move from Jalen Hurts? Or should Jalen Hurts get every last penny the market calls for in his next contract with the Philadelphia Eagles?
real short and sweet. He should get every single dollar and every single penny that's absolutely available because it's your second contract. My beef with guys is when your 4th and 5th contract and you're still maxing yourself out, and then you look around and you're like, where's all my help at? That's where, to me, it's like, okay, well, I mean, you're taking that kind of money. I'll say this about Jalen too. We were talking about this last night. Would you rather have a quarterback that's been really good to great for the first 5 years of their career? Or would you rather have a quarterback that has gotten better every single year? And it was funny, you know, again, in sports talk radio, Jalen, the deep ball. I'm like, this is great for this kid because Jalen gets better. You don't just squat 700 pounds. Those videos like overnight for fun. Like that guy is extremely dedicated to his craft, and anything that he's going to have a weakness at, he's going to work on. So that's a guy who's going to work on his weaknesses like crazy and build his strengths up. So yeah, like Howie's saying, you invest every dollar in this guy because they see, not because of what his performance is. Of course, the performance shows itself, but they see the kind of the feet under the water with the duck, meaning what goes on in the facility, how he handles himself, the film. He's got commercials now. Like, dude, it doesn't even matter. The guy's just an assassin. So that's a great question, Joe. I just think that type of guy, he's worth every penny.
Yep.
At Colin Thompson, TU, those Temple guys, you guys are thick as thieves. Sean Desai is a former Temple guy. Like you said, Colin, he's got about 47 degrees. I do want to get in the weeds with you about the so-called tush push as a tight end. because you'd be one of those guys pushing the quarterback ahead. Now, Eagles fans are very upset about this because they had so much success. They sort of innovated this philosophy. But I kind of look at it as a little bit counterintuitive. I think the Eagles should want it banned for this perspective, Colin. I don't think Jalen needs it. I think it's an insurance policy with Jalen, whereas I think every other team, they're going to copycat it, and their quarterbacks, for the most part, need the help. I don't think Jalen needs the help. I think the Eagles should want it banned.
It's a great point. I'm a tush push guy. It's old school football. Because if you're not going to do the tush push, right, then you can't push players after. Like for me, it's all about protection of players. Like, great, tush push, first down, awesome. Now you could say defensive players, but you're not really getting a head start. So, like, we used to do one-on-one drills at Temple, and me and Hassan Reddick would line up literally nose to nose with each other, and Rule would say go, and we would snap off on each other. But, like, you don't have that much momentum. So you're really not, like, putting yourself in jeopardy of, like, head injury or, like, shoulder stuff because you're 6 inches apart. So in that, when they're crowding the ball, defense is pretty much off sides, right? And it's okay.
Yeah.
Part of it. You know, there's not a lot of momentum. So for me, it's like, if you're going to ban that, then some other things have to go too, because when a tight end catches the ball at 8 yards and here comes the offensive lineman to help you up and make sure you don't go backwards, that saves you from concussion, separated shoulder, breaking an arm. Like, the whole thing is like, don't let the running back fall backwards. Like, that's a standard in the room. So if he bounces and he gets hit at 4 yards, like, we are trying to push him and not trying to, of course, trying to get more yards. We're trying to hold the guy up so he doesn't go backwards. So I'm a tush push guy. Again, you're going to stop a rule because it can't be stopped. Like, I don't know, like, really, like, load up the defense. And the problem is defensively is you're screwed in football nowadays. Like, you're going to do tush push, and then we're going to send a guy in motion and run jet sweep with Brown around the outside, like, or whoever, Devontae. So it's like, what can you do as a defensive coordinator? It's tough. And Saban talks about it all the time. He's like, I used to let up, I think our average was like 12 yards a game. And I was like, that was our standard. If anything more than that, I was pissed. I think the standard now is like up to 21 points a game. I saw him talking about it on YouTube. So these defensive coordinators, man, God bless you. Defensive coach, defensive players, all these helmet to helmets, all these penalties on the quarterback. People think they're just a flag on the ground. Those guys are getting fined like 30 grand. Like, that's everyone. Oh, they make millions. BS. Split it in half because of taxes. Take an agent fee out of it. In Philly, if you're a professional athlete, there's a tax on that too.
Yeah.
You're not walking around with that much money as people think. And then you get whacked for $50K on a paycheck. You're like, huh? I'm playing for free this week. So it's it's, again, I'm not saying feel bad for us, but man, these defensive guys, I do feel bad for them.
And oh, by the way, CJGJ got his fine in the Super Bowl rescinded. So he got his money back. So most times you got to pay, but every once in a while you get a little bit of a break.
He made a call. Hey, John, come on, buddy.
Yeah.
And it worked for him. So good on him. 2 last questions from me for you before we let you run, Colin. And I asked this one of basically everybody we had on throughout the playoffs leading up to the Super Bowl. And it's well suited for a guy like you. I watch the Kansas City Chiefs all year, not every single play, but enough. And then you see them in the playoffs because they're in there. You watch entire games at a time. And Travis Kielce not only gets open, he gets wide open. And you know that he's Pat Mahomes' #1 target. And you would think those oppressed defensive players / coaches and everybody else would go, all right, the one thing we got to do is not let Travis Kielce beat us. And he does, and he gets wide open on so many plays a game. The Eagles actually did a good job. He only got 6 catches in the Super Bowl, 81 yards and a touchdown, which is not bad, but only 6 catches is actually containing Kelce. How the F does this guy do this? Week in and week out, not only get open, but wide open. And Mahomes can just float the ball out to him because there's nobody within 5 yards of him. What does he have that, I'm sorry to say, the rest of you tight ends don't have?
Well, I think he's a Hall of Fame receiver. I don't think he's a Hall of Fame tight end, first off. And that's no disrespect to Travis. The guy is an elite, if not the best wide receiver in the NFL, period. I mean, I'll say this, and here's why it's allowed. Again, who's your coach? Who's your quarterback? He doesn't play by the rules. His routes are short. They're too long. Like on the playbook, I know someone for a fact in Kansas City. They say don't watch Travis when you're trying to learn the playbook.
Yeah.
Because
I say that all the time, Colin.
He doesn't
I
play
say,
by the yeah. Go ahead, John.
He and Patrick have an unbelievable feel. And
they
he
don't
does,
play by the rules. You saw it.
Yeah.
You saw it in Kansas City on that 2 years ago. Boop, when they were down, like whatever they were playing. Who was it? Buffalo? Yeah, Buffalo. I texted my buddy Ryan Bates, who's a Wood guy, Penn State guy, former Eagle. They traded, and he's a starting guard for the Bills. That's how good the Eagles are at taking offensive linemen. But I digress. I said, great win, bro. Let's go. Super Bowl bound. 9 seconds left. They went down the field, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, buddy. So my point is,
it was like sandlot football.
He ran like a little drift route. He ran a little in when he was not even supposed to do that because they're trying to get out of bounds.
Yeah.
Like Andy didn't even bless it. So my point is, as a defender, like if you're a defensive back or you're a safety or you're a linebacker guarding him, you play by the rules. Okay, he's at 10 yards deep here. Okay, what's he going to run? Corner? He's going to break in or he's going to run a seam. Can't run much else. You can run a stop. He'll do some whack shit and roll out of it, spin, and be wide open over the middle, catch, tuck, and he's explosive enough to hit it for 50. Yep. So you're like, and he'll jump over you, he'll run through you. Yeah. So I think the fact that, first off, he's extremely gifted. He works extremely hard. And then the other fact that a part of that offense and who the quarterback is too, like this is an even like Joe Burrow, who like is an elite quarterback, but Patrick Mahomes is elite, and then he does things that are so off the cuff.
Crazy. Yeah,
and I
crazy. Throwing against his body.
Yeah. So I think Andy supports it, obviously. And I think he plays by his own rules and it allows him to have success. Like he runs his shallow routes like across the field. He runs them in like 1 yard. They're supposed to be 5 to 6. He'll catch it at 1 and bend it to 5. Like he just does it. The linebackers are waiting to jam him from running across the middle. He runs right through the heels of the defensive lineman. So I stole it.
And Colin coaches, you still coach kids in Cape May, right? At times.
Oh, yeah. I'd say build 3 to 5 yards across the field, 6 yards. You're going to look and you're going to open up a little bit more. It's going to bring you back down. So set the angle for 6. It's going to bring you back to 4. But I stole the way he runs shallows from him, and I get open now because of it. So thank you, because I'm slow and fat. So thank you, Travis.
It is amazing, though. Like I always say with Steph Curry in basketball, if you're trying to teach a kid to play basketball, don't show him Steph Curry. Don't show him Patrick Mahomes. Don't show him Travis Kielce, because they do shit other people can't do. So I'm with you 100%.
They have permission to do it, which I think is unique in professional sport, any sport where you have a governing body, for lack of a better term, above you saying this is how the position's played, this is what you do. Not there. Before one more for you, at Not For Long Media, which I love the name, by the way, Colin. I still need my hat. I need a Not For Long Media hat. But anyway, I always said, as a player, and Colin's a free agent, by the way, so Howie, get on the horn. You need some competition behind Dallas Goedert. But when you do your media stuff, how did that go over in the building in Carolina? Obviously, you were close to Matt Rule, but how did that? Because sometimes you get pretty vocal. You know what? The hardest show I ever did was after the Eagles game, and we lost, and it was one of my worst games I ever played. And that was really hard for me. Because what can I go on here and be happy-lucky about? Like, it's a shame that it was the Eagles, because I probably would have moved on quicker. But it still sits with me, because you want to play well against your hometown team. And you know what? It was little things that I lost sight of, and I didn't play the game I wanted. But it could have been against any team. That happens. The NFL, it's the hardest league in the world. You're going to lose reps against really good players that get paid a lot of money. So my point to it was, that was my hardest time, John. But no one ever said, like, hey, because I never take hot takes. I'm never on here like, pay this quarterback, don't pay that guy. I have co-hosts and I have people that have other shows that we own that may say what they want to say, and I allow them to say it. But that's not a reflection on me. I take it that way. It's not out of my mouth. As long as you're being respectful and you're being courteous and you're not breaking those rules, I'm good with it. So it went over fine. It's funny. I do the Sam Boners, food reviews all the time. And they get the most traction out of all my podcasts I've done forever. I got Dan Morgan coming up to me, our assistant GM, Panther, Bills, stud
Yeah.
player, Miami.
Great linebacker, right?
Great guy. Love Dan. And Dan's like, dude, those cheesesteaks, let's go. And I'm like, man, I've been podcasting forever and no one says a word. But, I think, again, how's it go over in the locker room? I don't ever go at people, right? Like, even with Chauncey, like, I don't know the situation why he's tweeting, so I don't get involved in it,
Yeah.
It's his own career. So, I don't really do hot takes, John, and I don't try to really be disrespectful to anybody because I shouldn't be. It's not in my role. And then if I end up with another team, how can I speak about another player? It's a kind of a fraternity in that way until I'm done playing. So, I sat, I'll be honest with you. I talked to our Jack Connell, who is our producer, and he does a Ross Tucker show too. I'm like, Jack, Eagles this year, buddy. They're going. It's Eagles in Minnesota. I thought Carolina, we had the team, and I thought the Niners. But and I wish I could do more of that because I would be hitting home runs with some of that. It's real easy once you're in the league. I think like the playoff picture is crystal clear every time. So, long story short, it's a great question. It goes over fine. I think it's more promoted now by the by the organization, the players, and the social media. Like they're encouraging you to get out and do stuff. So, as long as I'm not crossing that line, I think I'm okay for now.
All right, I'm going to pull you back into the building for my last question.
Okay.
It's that time of year, watching the combine this week, everybody with opinions about players. Quarterbacks get more attention than anybody else, and people want to get their opinion out there on the
Pay the bill,
quarterbacks.
baby. Bring that salary cap. Keep talking about them.
All right. Last year, I was a Matt Corral fan and thought that the Panthers got lucky where they got him in the draft. This kid can actually be a starter. He gets hurt in his last game in college. Gets healthy, comes into camp, gets hurt again, out for the entire year. So nobody knows nothing about Matt Corral. I don't even know if he's still breathing. You need to tell me, is the kid a potential quarterback in this league?
I think he is. And I was able to rehab and train with him. I had a couple of nicks this year. So, you spend time together in the dark days with a couple guys. You get to know them a little bit when you're on the stationary bike inside the bubble and the whole team's outside, the music's bumping. Hey, you won 2 in a row and everybody's happy-go-lucky. And you and like 4 other guys are sitting here like, man, I'm dying to get back to play. And you really learn about a lot of guys that way.
Sure.
So I learned a lot about Matt. He worked his ass off. He had a crazy injury in preseason against New England, I believe it was. So, no, I'm a fan of Matt personally because I really think how you are as a human is going to show as a player. It really does. I mean, look at, again, i.e. Jalen Hurts. So I think Matt's an NFL quarterback, and I think he'll be fine. It's going to be interesting to see what they do in Carolina. Really is. I really, truly believe. I'm not even on the roster anymore. I think it's one of the best rosters in the NFL. Obviously, this year, things were kind of hectic in multiple ways in a lot of key positions, head coach, quarterback, running back, star running back leaving, or getting traded, I should say. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens down there, but they got a really good roster.
They got a class act as a head coach. I can tell you that.
Frank, yeah, I'd yet to meet him. So I'm excited for what they got. Hopefully I can end up back down there. I'd love to be back there.
Well, you're going to end up back here on Birds 365 with us. That I can guarantee you. Thank you very much for jumping in with us today. Gave us a lot of time. Wherever you do land, surely we're going to be on top of it with you, and we're definitely bringing you back. Appreciate you jumping in today, Colin. Thanks.
Hey, thank you, Jody. Good to see you there. J-Mac, as always. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Thanks, Colin.
Colin Thompson, NFL tight end, practice squad player for the Panthers this year. Still hoping to land someone this upcoming season. And, man, does he know his stuff, except for the last thing he said. Panthers, one of the best rosters in the NFL. He got a little too ingrained there this year. He enjoyed himself, enjoyed his teammates a little bit too much.
Well, those are guys, I do think they're better than what they showed last year from a talent perspective, but that's one of the reasons they moved on, and Frank Reich is the head coach down there. So I do think they got to get the quarterback right, but I do think they have an opportunity to have sort of a bounce back season. But because I've talked to Colin behind the scenes, that he was on the Eagles, he was on the Vikings, who had a good team, he was on the 49ers. It is kind of clear for guys in the league. They kind of know who the good teams are.
Except he added the Panthers there at the end, which I'm going, now I don't know whether to believe is Matt Corral's story or not, that Corral's a player, because I really did love the kid coming out of college, and he just had a completely waste first year. We shall see. All right, Johnny Mac, Jody Mac, the Mac and Mac Birds 365 guys. Quickie timeout coming, less than 20 minutes away. Jeff Mosher, Inside the Birds, and Inside Podcast, InsideTheBirds.com, going to join us here on Birds 365.